What's up? I'm Omani Najee, and welcome to the SEER site, a site for seers. Just sit back, relax, and let's see. Hello and welcome back to the SEER site, my beloveds. I am Omani Najee, and today we are going to step into one of the most misunderstood aspects of seeing. The most misunderstood roles in the seeing, I should say, and that is the medium. The medium. And this, I'm kind of directing this to those who already may be mediums, may suspect that they're mediums, or just curious as to what being a medium actually is, as opposed to rumors or superstition and things like that. So, as a seer and the SEER site, there are those that see beyond the veil. On the other hand, there are those who allow the other side of the veil to see back through them. This is the medium. And look, I'm not talking about the spectacle of mediumship, but about the service of being a medium. About becoming a bridge between this side and the other side. And I want to start out like this, and I want to share something that I literally never intended to openly share. But it has to deal with being a medium. And it's a very difficult experience to share. So last year, 2025, I'm here in my office when my wife tells me that dinner's ready. So we're going to have dinner, watch a movie, and kick it. So I leave my office to go to the kitchen, for dinner. And this was a normal night like any other basic normal night. And so as I approach my kitchen, I am suddenly frozen in my tracks, and this feeling starts just to come over me. And the best way to describe it is I turned around from where I was, so I'm facing my kitchen with my back to my den, my television, my couch and everything. And I turned back towards that area, and instead of seeing my normal living room settings, there was this wave. It looked like just a wave of what appeared to be a black mist or like black sand. And it was just rising like a wave. And as I'm looking at this wave, these children start to run out of the wave. And they're screaming and they're crying and they're scared. And I'm frozen, not just from the physical feeling of cold and chill that I feel, but these children just kept coming through this mist, this dark wave of a mist. And once they came through, it's like they stopped, and some of these children, these beings were together and some were by themselves, but there were many children. And by this time I'm freaking out. And so again, like some of my other prevalent experiences, I'm hyperventilating, can't breathe because I have no idea what's going on. And so I go and sit on my couch, because by this time where my TV was and where that wave was, the children are like huddled in different groups or by themselves between my television and my couch. And I'm sitting on my couch kind of hyperventilating. My wife's like, baby, what's going on? And she understands I get these experiences, but this was one of those overwhelming. And I'm like, hold on, I can't breathe. And I can't explain to her what I'm seeing. And so there's just all these children, and their fear was palpable. They're crying, and it's as though they were running from something. And in common fashion of speaking to spirits, I asked, what's going on? And me and these children, some of these children have this interaction, and they explain their story. And I literally can't believe what I'm experiencing. And I've experienced a lot. And, I'm asking, so why did you come to me? And again, we have this interaction. And so I am just in a state of confusion. And as this is going on, that wave that they came out of started to dissipate. But as it dissipates, another wave of light starts to open up. But this one is like golden light. And just to explain it, there's this bridge. And the children that I am dealing with have calmed down, and their emotions and their moods and their energy starts to change and becomes, almost, I can't say instantly, but very quickly, it went from a very heavy to a very light vibration. And then these kids head towards this golden light and dissipate through that mist. Now that is a very, very succinct, quick summary of what happened. But, and I'll be honest, it ruined my night because I don't know what's going on. I'm no longer eating dinner or watching a movie. And so I turn on the news, and it just so happens that not too long, like very, very much not too long before this happened, there was a bombing of a school in Gaza where many children and people had died. And I'm not sharing this to be political, but and I'm just going to be blunt, these were children of Gaza who had just been slaughtered during the Palestinian genocide. And let's just keep it real, it's a genocide. And again, I had nothing to do with what was going on there. I don't know anyone from Israel, from Gaza, or anything. This was just that experience. And during this conversation with these children, I asked, why come to me? I don't know shit about this, other than the Holocaust I had witnessed in some news reports. And I'm not sure what time it was over there, but I would say about 4 or 5 hours later, I am still suffering the effects of my experience. And I didn't know what to do. But these children during this interaction kind of shared things with me very quickly before they crossed over. And not knowing who to talk to, how to share it, and not being able to sleep that night, I stayed up and I wrote something to express what I was feeling, my experience. And then In full disclosure, I went to a Facebook site that I never heard of, did a search, and I shared my experience anonymously on this site. Again, because I didn't want to become involved in this. I wasn't trying to share this. I wasn't trying to experience this. But this is what I experienced, and I want to share what I wrote that night to explain my dynamics with being a medium. And again, this is something very hard for me to re-experience. Though it happened, a few months ago, the experience is still very real and very personal. And so this is something I wrote that night and shared anonymously on Facebook from April the 3rd of 2025. And this is called Children of the Midst of Gaza. And I don't know if that's how you say Gaza, but this is how the children said it to me. So I used to say Gaza, but this is how the children said it to me, Gaza. So, Assalamu alaikum. I experienced something extremely profound tonight and felt I needed to share it. I am nobody, and I mean absolutely no offense in what I share with you. I am merely a person that sometimes, unfortunately, walks in both worlds. It is not customary that I share my experiences with everyone, but felt the overwhelming need to do so in this situation. After experiencing this, I found the reports of the barbarism that just occurred at a school in Gaza. Know that I love you all, and my heart lies heavy with you. I am but your brother in love and in sorrows. I am sorry for the tragedies that you are experiencing. And so I wrote this poem called Children of the Midst of Gaza. As I went to my kitchen to get something to eat, a chill stilled my soul, frozen at my feet. When behind me did proffer a mystical haze, like a shadow of light that rose like a wave. When from the midst of the mist, the children came running. At Gaza, they screamed as their souls kept on coming. My heart overwhelmed, my mind full of screams as children kept emerging from the mist as if in teams. As I walked from my kitchen, my head in my hands, horror in my eyes as my wife at me glanced. "Are you okay, baby?" As she sought my face. "No," my reply. My breath seemed to waste. Walk it off I tried, moving from room to room, till I sat on my couch with these feelings of doom. My tears began to flow as the wave of mist withdrew. Left before me were the souls of many children I never knew. "Who are you, my babies?" my wretched souls did shout. "We're children of Gaza," the children sang out. "What happened, my babies?" I asked them through tears. "The monster has taken our lives from our dears. But why come to me, you precious little dears? Let our loved ones know we suffer no more fears. We suffer no pain. We suffer no hate. Though the suffering they feel makes our souls ache. But who am I to say or speak on such things? We came to you," these babies did sing. "But I know not anyone who listened to me. who want to hear from this stranger from a land overseas. My sobbing continued, yet the children are now dancing, singing, smiling, milling, and prancing. When beyond our commune, a new mist did appear of golden light shimmers, and a bridge drawing near. The children they gathered, the bridge they approached. With giggles and wonders, a new journey they broached. I love you, my babies, I said as they hummed. You'll figure a way, as to you, we did come. As they all began to float towards the mist, from it came children, from out of its midst. With hands held out gently, your children took the grips of, escorted by these little girls and little boys, somewhere in keep us. And off they did go, with joy they did cross into the midst of the mist. But your babies are not lost. New journeys they travel, hands held with new friends. This is but their beginning. It is not their end. Peace be with you. Spirit Walker. That's what my name translates to, Spirit Walker, Omani Naji. This is one of my experiences as a medium. And I'll share the difference between just being a seer and being a medium. So what is a medium? A medium is a person who can receive, translate, and transmit information from the spirit world, from spirit beings, whether they be ancestors, relatives, spirit guides, multidimensional beings, those type of entities, and permit themselves to be a living bridge between the spirit world and this side. It's about being a living bridge, literally. So what is the difference between being a seer and being a medium? A seer sees through the veil into the spirit world. So if I see something to the spirit world, I share what I see in the spirit world. That is, by essence, a seer, one who sees into the spirit world. The medium is the bridge that allows the spirit world to see and speak back from the spirit world, from that side of the veil into this side. So for instance, psychics, intuitives, we perceive energy. Seers speak of what they see, speak of truth and things like that. But the medium allows that consciousness to speak back through. And let me just put this out there as a caveat. This is not imagination. I used to think it was. I used to want it to be. But this is all about attunement. And this is when I was out of tune. And now that I'm attuned, it is not imagination. For instance, I had an experience where one night, and I may have shared this in another episode, I had an experience with a spirit that I did not know who or what she was. She felt like a rainbow giving me a hug. This is on a Friday night in my apartment by myself. The next day I meet a medium who I had no inclination of contact with her. But during that contact, she shared the experience I had the night before that no one knew about. So this is not about imagination. And I like to get into it particularly with the backgrounds and superstitions that have misplaced what a medium is. So think of a medium like a radio receiver. you're listening to a radio, and this is for those who aren't mediums and those who are mediums. The medium is like a radio who tunes into different stations. The music or the information that comes from the other side is then transmitted. The medium is merely the radio, the receiver that receives that frequency and is attuned to that frequency from the beyond. Or you could say we're like the bridge where two realms meet. And believe me, I'm not saying this shit is a flex, because it's not. In my experience, it ain't always fun as demonstrated in the experience I just had or just shared. But we're kind of like translators from the spirit world to this world, and not translating things that you don't already know, just sharing the information. It's like, the radio thing. You hear a song that's familiar to you. Remember, the medium's just the radio. So it's not things you don't even know. Or it might be a song you're like, ooh, that's beautiful. That's what a medium is. Now, let me put this out here, because there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to mediumship, particularly due to superstitions, religion, things like that. Mediums are not summoners. I'm not talking about summoning spirits. That is not what a medium does. And there's been a lot of misinformation and ignorance that had conflated the two, whether through Hollywood, superstition, religion, that kind of bullshit. Mediums don't summon spirits. Mediums don't really have time to summon spirits. What mediums do is they sit and listen to spirits. Now, there are different types of mediums. And I'll share a few of those. And look, this is not an exhaustive list. It's taken me a while to understand what being a medium is, and accepting being a medium. And so I'm going to share the different types for those who don't understand, those who do understand, and those who have these traces in them that might intrigue the medium within you. So here's the types of mediums. There's a claircognizant, or the mental medium, who gets images from the other side, receives it mentally, whether through thoughts or images and inner knowing. Then there's a clairvoyant medium. These are the ones who see spirits visually, externally, or even internally. But these are the people that actually see spirits. And for some, this is probably the most petrifying type of medium there is, when you actually see it. And I'll explain that later. But you can see the departed ones. You can see spirit beings. See them like they're right in front of you. Or you have an inner scene where it's so vivid, you know what they look like, and have that type of interaction. Then there's the clairaudient medium, who hears through spirit communication. Whether you're hearing names or, phrases or songs or tones. And that's how most of my flute music is delivered to me. My flute music is a type of mediumship because I get it from the other side. I can't read or write music, but shit, I can make any type of music, and it comes from the other side to share it. Now, I'm not sure that's a medium. I just share that type of aspect. That's a whole nother subject of mediumship, if it's mediumship. Then it's the clairsentient medium. That's the one who feels spirits present. And this one, feels it emotionally. And this one is typically the one that's most overwhelming personally for me, because I am feeling the emotions of who's ever visiting me as though they are experiencing it at that time. And so you have those type of clairsentient mediums. So for instance, the emotions, the fear that I felt from these children from Gaza. And things like, I've seen mediums where, say someone crossed over from a heart attack. That clairsentient medium will feel that like chest pressure or those physical symptoms. Then you have the trance medium, or the how do you call it? The mediums that channel. And this is more of a symbiotic type of mediumship. This one is you're like channeling other types of entities. And there's a reason that there are different types of entities in mediumship, and we're about to cover that. But this type of mediumship, you'll see people who speak in altered states or deliver long-term type teachings. They're not just quick messages, but they come for particular reasons. And those type of mediums allow that energy to actually flow through them instead of just translate the energy from one side to the other. And let me say, these are my personal experiences in mediumship and what I've learned from other mediums. There may be tons and tons of different types of mediumship, like art. I know spirit artists who get it from the other side, that form of medium, or music, things like that. So you have that type of medium. Some of these may resonate with you and some of these may not. You may be a medium that thought you were limited to a certain type of mediumship, and these explanations might help you to expand your mediumship. For instance, the first medium that I met who actually told me of the experience that I had shared, that I had that nobody else knew, she told me she doesn't read spirit guides, but that when she came around me, she had no choice, and that what she was getting from me was helping her to expand her own traits. And so I don't want to say that mediums are limited to a particular type of mediumship. I can't answer that question. But again, mediums are tuned into a certain frequency. How mediums expand their frequency, that's up to their individual needs, teachings, desires, things like that. But I digress. It's a whole nother subject. Let me get this straight. When I talk about the trance medium, this does not mean that medium loses control of themselves. We're not talking about the spectacle of possession that we've been taught to fear due to ignorance and ignorance. So it's not, we're not talking about possession. There are different types of wavelengths for mediums. And this is just my classification from the medium experiences that I've had and have witnessed, both whether it's been on television or YouTube or in person. But you have those mediums, and they could be, it doesn't matter if they're clairvoyant, claircognizant, or none of that. That's just the different types of mediumship. But there are the different missions that I've categorized that mediums proffer. First are the comforters. These are the mediums that speak to loved ones, relatives, friends that have crossed over. And the typical result of these interactions for the person receiving the message, not the medium translating the message, but for the person receiving the message. The medium is only the bridge. We mean nothing. We're just the bridge. The message is for the intended. So typically, the result for the intended is comfort, closure, healing, peace, those aspects. Then you have the mediums that hear from the teachers, that, they get their information from spirit guides. And again, the medium is just the bridge. Our mission is to the intended. And so these are the ones that the mediums that will speak to people and give them messages from their spirit guides, things that will help them through their life, that will assist in their evolution. This is the one I am most familiar with myself. Yes, I see ancestors and things like that. My first experience as a child was an ancestor. But my prevalence is more with the teachers, the spirit guides. They seem to come in more frequently than other types of ways I medium. Then there are the diviners. This is where I would put the channelers and everything. These are the mediums that talk to the multidimensional or the celestial beings. Well, let me go back to the teachers. The typical result from the mediums that speak to the teacher type spirits is typically self-enlightenment, self-awareness, and guidance. And then we get to the diviners, which are like the channelers and things like that. And they speak to the multidimensional beings, celestial beings, and those type of energies. The typical result in that are prophecies, warnings, foretellings. And I separate those into those categories because the effect is typically, or the result is typically different in each scenario. For me, I've never seen the ancestor or the relative that has crossed over prophesy or foretell. They are typically there to offer comfort and things like that. And so there are these different levels. Now, let me put this in there as a caveat. When I speak of mediumship, and I'm just be blunt with it, I ain't talking about your preachers, your imams, your ministers, and all that bullshit. That is not mediumship. That is not mediumship. There's a thing called mediator, and unfortunately in religion, people have confused being a mediator and being a medium. So let me tell you what the difference is. You need no mediator between you and source. It's one of the biggest lies. And as someone who used to preach this bullshit, being a mediator between God and man is one of the biggest lies. You do not need a mediator between you and your source. However, sometimes due to the clouds that have been placed in our lives, we forget to understand what the other side means. And so here's the difference between being a medium and the fake shit of being a mediator. In mediumship, from every single message and experience I've ever had, there's always been one thing that has been missing. That is in every religion, and that is adherence. I've never, ever, ever heard of a spirit guide, a spirit being, a relative, or an ancestor demanding adherence. Come and do this, and I will do this for you, and all that kind of bullshit. Mediums listen. Spirit passes information through that medium to the receiver. It is the receiver's free will what to do with that information. And this is how Spirit told me to decipher between what's legit and what's bullshit. If someone is demanding that you adhere over and above your own free will, that has nothing to do with spirit of any kind, whether it's religious, political, educational, or anything like that. There is no demand for adherence from anything legitimate from the spirit world. So for me in my past, or any other preacher or minister or, religion, that has absolutely nothing to do with the spirit world. There are no demands from the spirit world. And I had to learn this the hard way. One thing I've never, heard spirits say that I've heard in every single man-made religion. I've never heard spirit say should or shouldn't, shall or shall not. Never. Because it breaks the entire foundation of your soul's free will. Spirit delivers information. What you do with that information is subject to your free will. Now, again, what you sow, you reap. Karma comes around. So this is the difference between what an actual medium does and what mediumship is not. I've never heard of a medium tell somebody, well, you need to do this. Now, a relative might share with, or a spirit might share, hey, you might want to look into getting some exercise or eating healthy, things like that. Again, information, advice, but there is no thou shalt. But this is the difference. And how to tell between a legitimate medium and someone who's bullshitting you. There is never a demand for adherence. And I had to think this one through when my spirit guides were sharing this with me. So we got those mission types. We got that out of the way. Now, let's talk about the ethics of mediumship. When practiced ethically, and this is how you know, and this is for the medium, the person who thinks they're a medium, and the person receiving, and particularly for those who are receiving things from the medium, because there are a lot of fakers out there, a lot of bullshitters. And so here are ways for you to determine, particularly if you're spending money, on how you are dealing with a legitimate medium, regardless of whether they're the comforter type, teacher type, diviner, whatever. And it's always the results. Comfort. Were you comforted? Healing. Do you feel that healing? You'll know what I'm talking about. It's going to be different for everyone. Closure. Or even validation. I mean, validation is one of the most beautiful ways that the spirit world speaks to us. You know, I've so many people, and this is how I used to test my abilities, is when someone would say, you know, share that they thought they saw their loved one crossover, and they'd share some information about that, and I kind of side-handedly say, oh wow, when you said that, this is the picture that came into my mind. And sometimes they look at me and like, ooh, how'd you know? I didn't share that. But for me, it was validation. And at the same time, it was validation for them, because that person, even though they may not consider themselves a medium, and maybe they're not, because you're going to, you know, I've heard, whether you're a medium or not, it seems like a lot of people have felt, heard, or have endured some type of presence from a close loved one or relative that has passed over. This is a normal human experience that you don't need a preacher to tell you about. You really don't need a medium to tell you about. The medium just is there to validate what you are experiencing. And that is the difference. No adherence. We just sit here and listen and then share that information that we're giving with you. Information that has absolutely nothing to do with the medium. Because I don't understand a lot of the shit I get until it's shared with the intended who, and it's up to them to then share its validation or its relation with me. And so that's the difference between what I have found being a true medium and signs of bullshit. You know, here's some other signs of bullshit. Real mediums are not summoners. I'm sorry, but sitting at a table, and I know, you know, Hollywood has done this thing with like Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost. You're sitting around a table and you're summoning spirits. The real medium does not have time for that bullshit. spirits are waiting to speak through people. There's, and I could be wrong. And if I am, I'm sorry. But what spirit tells me, you ain't got to summon us. We're there. We're the ones on the other side. You're just a tuner. The radio has no control of what comes through it. Now, yeah, we can change different tunings that come through, different stations we tune to, or different vibrations we attune to. But the information from the other side ain't got shit to do with the medium. That song from the other side is for the listener. The medium's just the radio. We can't just the mailman. Don't beat up the mailman, type thing. And so we're not summoners. The legitimate mediums that I have encountered and in my own experiences, I am not sitting there, oh, spirit, come and talk to me. Things like that. We never force communication. The legitimate medium does not force communication. In fact, I would say you don't have time to, because you're always, for the most part, overwhelmed with it. It's just coming. We don't manipulate grief. I'm just going to put this out there. I remember seeing a famous medium on TV who tried to manipulate grief when talking to the parents of, if I remember correctly, a child who had been missing, who she was under the belief was in a particular situation that child obviously was not. And this was years ago. And I remember seeing that. And it was one of the reasons I kind of stayed away from mediumship, because of the bullshitters. And so the legitimate medium will not sit there and manipulate grief. Me getting emotional over what I felt with these children, I ain't trying to sit here and cry in front of you, but when I feel that shit, it's something I can't help. But you'll have those ones that are trying to have that pathetic face and to try and get you to emotionally and mentally believe in bullshit. So, in my opinion, that is not a legitimate form of mediumship. And again, with that same person, a legitimate medium does not claim absolute authority. If it doesn't resonate, it don't resonate. And I've seen mediums that will try and force how you feel about what they're telling you. Does it resonate with you? No, it doesn't. Oh, well, yes, it does. And they'll try and force that. No. The medium who taught me, who first brought me out and taught me, in all the sessions I went with her, she never tried to manipulate that shit. I've never tried to manipulate that shit. The legitimate ones that I've seen have never tried to manipulate that shit. And it's always the fake ones that try and manipulate shit. That's what makes it fake manipulation. Look, mediumship overall has nothing to do with control. Has absolutely nothing to do with control. But what it boils down to is a sacred listening. Just sit there and listen. And, in my earlier experiences, I think that's why I had so much outside noise and didn't like to quiet myself, because when I quieted myself, like I say, you quiet the mind, the spirit world gets loud. And so, and I understand this, if you're one of those mediums that's still doing that, you try and get as much outside noise to shut down the inside noise. And I get it. But once you get past that threshold, the inside noise is beautiful, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And for me, personally, the more outside noise I had, it sounded like the inside noise wanted to get louder to get above it so I could hear it. Hey, dummy! Hey! So that was part of my evolution into my gifts of being a medium. And I'm going to sit here and say I've enjoyed it. It's, like that experience. It can screw your night up. It can screw your day up. I mean, these kids, they were beautiful. And to feel the fear that just came rushing into my home, into my comfort zone, let's be honest. A lot of us run from this for comfort. But the tangible fear that came barging into my home, who really wants that? Now, on the flip side, I'll say this. The joy that was felt when the kids started smiling and started to cross over to the other side was just as overwhelming. One was very deep, dark, and heavy. The other one was so beautifully light and uplifting. And unfortunately, as an empath, I have the same physical reaction to those polarities, for lack of a better word. And I want to kind of end with this. There's some of you out there that are hiding behind your gifts. And that is your free will. I'll share this quick story. I have seen spirits since I was a little kid. The first spirit I saw was a woman, an ancestor. And I sat up in my bed. We just talked. And the next morning I asked my mom, who was that lady in my room? And she's like, what lady? I'm like, the lady I was talking to. She said, there was no lady in your room. Next night, Mommy, or the next morning after that night, Mommy, who was that lady in my room? She was there again. And she's like, what lady? And so I'm describing, there's this lady who was at the end of my bed, and we were just talking. And this was a conversation just between me and my mom. My little brother was there. So after the third night, at breakfast, my mom kind of jokes, was that lady there again? And I remember my dad, he was there this day. He didn't have to work that day. And he turns around, says, what lady? And so my mom shares with him what I had told her the last 2 days. I'm like, yes, she was there again. And so this happened for 3 nights. And my mom told me, there was no spirit, this and that. And that was my very first experience with seeing physically what I learned to be was a spirit. I thought it was just a regular person. That's what it looked like, felt like. I didn't understand what a spirit was. That's why I was asking, who was that lady? Turned out she was an ancestor. But, as a young kid, I would have these experiences to share with my mom, and she'd always, oh no, there's nothing there, this and that. 40-something years later, and my mom calls me, says, I need to talk to you about something. I'm like, yeah, what's up? She goes, how do you deal with the spirits you see? And I am shocked because I was, for 40-something years, you said nothing was there. And I had told her this. I'm like, so what do you mean? And my mom then shares with me that she sees spirits. She's always seen spirits, but she's always been afraid of the experience. And my mouth is hanging open like, are you shitting me? Because here I'm thinking I'm screwed up. And my mom, who everybody, I know them just like my mom, is having these experiences and tells me, I've had these experiences for a long time. I just never want to talk about it. And her reasoning was religion. And then she goes back further and says, and just to let you know, my mother was a seer. So her mom, who passed away before I was even a thought, she goes, she was a seer. She saw things, but she hid it. And then when my mom describes what her experiences are, her seeing abilities, it turns out, are just on point. But it was one of those things that she had considered a torture throughout her life. And so from the time she shared it with me until she lost her memories, she would call me just fearful. And I try and tell her, mommy, talk to them, ask them what they want. But her ingrained fear had overcome her so much that she felt speaking to them was an evil, even though what was coming to her were not evil beings. They were people that she actually knew. In fact, she would get visitations from these people days before they actually passed away. And so my mom's sight was a whole thing I couldn't even understand. And sometimes I think, man, what would it have been like if we both embraced our shit a long time ago? But this is the path. I don't blame her. This is the path I had to take for my own self-discovery. But know this, you may have the ability to be a medium, and it is your free will not to be. I've made those choices for myself too. I'm now sharing the things I've tried to hide for so long. But just know it's not evil. You're not evil. It's not an evil thing, regardless of what superstitions have forced many of us to believe. And so just know this, my beloveds. Mediums remind us that our love and our connections to love never die. They never die. They never cease. They may feel interrupted on a physical level, but it doesn't die. It doesn't cease. That's the comfort that mediums bring. Mediums show that consciousness continues. It continues. Death is a word that we've been taught to fear because we see it as an end. While in our reality, it's just a cutting of a tether. In fact, the feeling that spirits give me of the death experience is this, and I was kind of shocked. It's like if you're laying in a warm blanket and you throw off that blanket and you're immediately cold. That immediate shock is the doorway between this and the other side. And then, once you throw off that blanket, you're like, oh, I'm at home, and that's the crossover. That's the emotional and physical experience. Because I be asking questions of them. I ask questions because I'm nosy. And these are what they share with me. And they also show us that the divide is closer. Our worlds, this physical world, the non-physical, that divide is closer than we've been led to believe. Much closer than we've been led to believe. It's not even right in front of us. It actually is us. And aside from all the doomsday dogmas of what mediumship is, overall, legitimate mediumship brings comfort to all who receive. So if you feel called to your mediumship, just know it ain't some badge for the ego, but it's a calling. And it is a calling that demands humility. Because if anything Spirit teaches is we're just a piece of something much, much, much greater. And until next time, my beloveds, think deeply, see clearly, and journey well. I love you.